When I started this, and I'm kind of really, this will be the first time I've admitted it, I started it with a big ego. I really wanted to be the guy. I wanted to be a guy that people talked about. I wanted to see people watching me. I wanted to see, and in all honesty, when this started, I think in my mind, I was looking at that as the success factor. I was bringing the charity with me, but I was evaluating the success on how popular and how much attention and how much engagement I was getting. And that's full transparency. Ego is a very, very bad thing. And I had a big ego, a damaging ego. There's good ego, there's bad ego. My ego was very bad. And what I've had to learn, and I think and I pray that this is what's happening, because this is where I'm really going to become a better human being and probably someone that can help people, is when I can get to the finish line and abandon the whole concept of how many people care about what I did versus how many people did I help.
You're listening to the Life Edge Podcast, the place to learn, grow, and succeed.
Well, Matt, thank you for joining us again, and I'm excited to give everyone an update on the Ride for Change and where you're at. So, first of all, I love the beard. Keep growing the beard. But your voice is a little groggy. You want to give us an update on what's going on?
Yeah, so I'm trying to think back to the last time we talked, but I made it across Canada. Roughly 65,000 kilometers. I had a break there, and then we started to head north from Vancouver up through a couple of well-known places like Whistler, BC, a very famous ski resort, Squamish, and we're heading up further and further north. Today I'm in Prince George, but what's happening is we're now getting exposed more and more to the forest fire smoke. And two things can come with forest fires. You can get the smoke, or you can get road closures, because they can be quite fast moving. We've lost a couple of firefighters already up here. Matter of fact, in our hotel room right now are some firefighters from the US who are up here helping us fight the fires. So we haven't dealt with any road closures, but smoke is in the air, and I think between that and the exhaust from the heavy industrial traffic, I got a nasty thing going on with my chest. So hopefully by tomorrow I'll be good to go again, but right now it's a persistent cough that catches me off guard sometimes.
You said, I'm pretty sure today was a rest day for you, and I wanted to... You're halfway over this journey. You literally just said that you crossed Canada, which is a journey of itself, but like to you that was just a mile marker of like, hey, we've gone halfway essentially. On your rest days, which are few and far between, but I'm glad that you have them. On a day like today, what's the mental state like? Are you fearing tomorrow? Are you worried about tomorrow? Especially with now the new logistical issues of the smoke and potential road closures. What's going through your head right now?
Yeah, it's a really good question, because I just spoke to a gentleman who's got an amazingly rich background, military, highly trained military person, ultra endurance athlete, coach, etc. I was talking to him, and I said, rest days are good and bad. I typically have my most down days on rest days. I actually get quite depressed, because I think two things sneak into my mind. All the work that's left to go. When I'm running every day or riding every day, I don't have time to think, I just do. But when I have a day off, I actually start to think about all the kilometers we have yet to go. And I also start to think about what's next. And believe it or not, my mind is already getting to that point where I'm starting to wonder, where do I go from here? And this is where the mental battle is going to come. So it's good and bad. My body gets a bit of a rest, but mentally they can be tough. He gave me some advice on how to deal with it. But typically on rest days, I feel sort of out of sorts.
Mm-hmm. Now, I think you're supposed to pick up a support rider moving into tomorrow, right?
Yeah. Adam is joining us from Edmonton, Alberta. He'll ride with me for 12 days. If the forest fires or the smoke become too much, we'll pick up and we'll move to the next available opening. And that's the thing about the smoke. It can be there 1 minute, gone the next. But I don't think I can afford any more days riding through the smoke. It's impacted me quite negatively. And I do not want to expose him to that. He's only up here for 12 days. I'd hate for him to have to ride through smoke for 12 days. That just makes no sense. So he's going to join me tonight. We're going to have a different vibe on the ride. I'm going to try to be a little lighter now that I have someone to bounce off of comments and ideas. So we're going to try to add a little humor into the situation because that's what we need right now.
I was really interested. I had asked you about the fires. If you had any issues with the fires, I don't know, it was probably a month ago. So it feels like it was forever and a day ago. And I was curious if they were going to impact the ride or not at any point. And I was like, man, I don't see how you cycle across Canada, and with how much smoke's blowing across Canada and how many fires there are right now, I just don't see how this becomes an issue. And I was really hoping and praying that there would be, by the time you got there to that part, that a lot of that would be kind of over with. And it's just kind of a bummer that this is something you're having to deal with. But this is also like a good example of life. Like, we can't plan for everything. There's no way you could have possibly forecasted what's going on, that this would be the worst fire season that Canada's ever seen. And it just is what it is.
I'll let you in on a little secret, and you'll be the first to hear it. When we planned this trip out, the 13,000 kilometers, unknown at the time, would have required a home run every day. I mean, every day for 100 days. So if you would imagine, Chris, taking a trip around the world with your wife, on hundreds of different airlines through hundreds of different countries, and expected not to be delayed or have a flight canceled, that's what we chanced. And I think overall we're probably 90%. The odds of me hitting 13,000 kilometers exactly going to be pretty difficult, because I'd have to make up a lot of kilometers that could potentially be missed, some that already have been missed because of, heat, exhaustion, etc. So the fact that I'm at 7,600 kilometers now, I've already crossed the line where I feel that no matter what happens now, I'm going to get to a level where I'll be able to say I feel successful. But honestly, for us to hit 13,000 from the get-go was going to be difficult. And we've hit almost every day with good success. A few have been missed because of, like I said, I've had to take myself off the course or something else. But I expect in the next couple of weeks we're going to have a day where we have to pick up and move. And the other problem here is that there's not 150 different routes up to Whitehorse and Yellowknife. You've got a couple of major routes, and some of those routes aren't even feasible because of remoteness, the location, hotels, etc. So I have to prepare my ego for what could be a missed day. I've had one missed day due to sickness a week ago. Other than that, we've been super lucky. It's just, we talk about the 13,000 almost as if we had a whole bunch of wiggle room. We had zero wiggle room. Every day had to be a home run, and we've had really good success. I'd say we're batting well over 500, but we're not batting 1,000, I can tell you that.
I recently noticed, or I guess you've been talking about more often, these flat tires that have been plaguing you. I do have a question. Are you intentionally trying to get flat tires to take a break?
Well, my cut up finger, as you can see there, would say no. They're actual real pains. We had a mishap yesterday. I was charging my phone in my vehicle. Nicole was up waiting for me at the next pickup stop. Literally, flat tire. I didn't have my phone with me. Usually I call her, she picks me up. They're real pains in the ass. I'm not the best at changing them. They can take 20, 25 minutes, 30 minutes. I'm getting better at it. They're not cheap because, every time we have to put a new tube in, that's $10, $15. They're just pains in the ass, but it's unavoidable because the roads are so industrial. You're getting the steel threading that are in the tires. When the tires blow on these industrial trucks, they shoot these, they're almost like pins. If you're not very careful when you look for the object, you can actually cut yourself pretty badly. So I just went today and bought another 8 or 9 of these tubes for the northern run.
Yeah, that's I can imagine now that you're in that heavy traffic area, that steel cording they put in the tires to keep them together is probably not healthy.
Yeah.
What you're trying to do.
No, it's rotten.
Yeah. Well, so last time we talked, and this may have been an Instagram Live or the podcast, I don't remember which, but you were really concerned mentally about this back half. Like, you said mentally that this was going to probably for you be the most challenging aspect of this ride, and is that holding true?
Yeah, so here's another kind of bomb to go off. You may or may not know, but now I really have to start worrying about donations. We've got a couple of very important things in play. Right now, Lyle Bess, the fellow who you interviewed with me, quite a while ago, he's making a video in Edmonton with my production crew, Production 71, that is specifically aimed at donations to the business community. So we are now faced with a situation where we have a little less than half of the event to go, but we probably have to raise 60% of the target donation. So that's the first thing that starts to weigh on your mind mentally. I'm getting closer to home, so I start to worry about who's watching, who's listening. I'm very remote now, so now we really feel quite alone, and sometimes I wonder if people have forgotten about it because it's such a long event. And the third thing I worry about is what's next. Where do I go from here? I had a really interesting conversation with a fellow, as I was mentioning today, and I just said, look, flat out, this is all going to stop in about 40 days. And I don't mean kind of trickle off, it's going to stop dead. I'll get to Edmonton on August 27th, and on August 28th, it's quiet. There's nothing going on. So now, Chris, I have to figure out how to convert what truly has been this amazing growth, wake-up call experience, lessons learned, whatever you want to call it, into something that I can leverage to move forward with. That's beyond just a 13,000 kilometer endurance event. There's a story here that I think can help people. There's a story here that I think can be leveraged to propel other stories forward. And I have to figure all that out. And I'm at that point now where I've got to start thinking at it from at least the 100,000 foot level. Because if I don't, I'll hit a very quick rock bottom when I get home, because it'll just stop and I'll be bored, and that's when the depression can sneak back in. So I have to figure this out. Like, I don't know where I'm going to go from here. And the scarier thing is I have it. I could potentially have this amazing thing in the palm of my hands, and if I don't convert it, I'll lose it. I'll lose the momentum, and I'll I'll be at square one again. So that's a long answer to why this back half is so scary. And lastly, yeah, it's a very remote portion of the ride, and who knows what we're going to encounter.
Before we move on, just speaking to what you're going to be doing after this, what does your gut tell you? What does your gut tell you, but also what do you want to do?
Well, again, so interesting we're talking. This whole journey doesn't make any difference in the world. I'll raise some money for children, and we'll put some children on bikes, and we're going to give an organization a lot more presence. That's for sure going to happen. For myself, though, if I end up just telling a story about two people going across Canada, it will be just that. Two people across Canada, 13,000 kilometers. By itself, a pretty interesting story, pretty miraculous, pretty interesting. But in reality, people do stuff like this all the time. Do they have my background? Are they my age? Maybe not. Maybe there's some nuances here that are very interesting. But in reality, this stuff is done all the time. And I think I got a wake-up call from my sponsor when he said, Matt, we were talking about donations at the time, but he put it to me very blankly. He said, I don't want to hurt your feelings, but this stuff's being done all the time. It's very difficult to stand out. And he's right. So where this becomes valuable is when I can take what I've done and actually start helping people. I can talk to people in a way that is authentic, not ego-driven. Look at me, I'm great. Not throwing out motivational quotes, but real substance about human transformation, about beating mental illness, about changing your physical state, about achieving the better life. If I cannot harvest from this journey that I've been on, plus the 300-kilometer run, elements that I can leverage to help people in the larger community, then I think this just becomes nothing more than a very, very big endurance event. So that's what I have to figure out. And when I do, then I'm going to have something that I think I can leverage to define my next purpose, which I personally hope will be to help people and more charities.
I think we've known each other long enough. I'm going to push back on you a little bit. Yes, this stuff gets done all the time. And to say that it isn't changing the world, I would disagree with, because there's kids that are going to get to ride bicycles that never would have if you hadn't done what you're doing. And you don't know, like, you may not be changing the world on a global level, but you're changing that kid's world.
Yes.
And it's more than one. And I know the impact. I've talked to people here who are following what you're doing. So people in the States that are supporting what you're doing. And it's inspiring them to go do good elsewhere. Now, they may not be donating, but they've been helping out in other ways. And it is inspiring people to do good things. And so I understand, like, it's easy for the business side or the very analytical side to be like, people do things to raise money for charities all the time, but you're still impacting individuals' lives on a scale that is, right now in the thick of it, it's hard to understand because there's no tangible way of measuring it currently other than the money you've raised for charity. But I think things will change at the end of this when you get to see the kids that you've been able to help support. And so I would say yes to one end of the sponsor who had said, like, this is happening every day, but I would also push back, like, you have made a difference and you are making a difference.
I appreciate that. And I agree 100%. I think, when I started this, and I'm kind of, really this will be the first time I've admitted it, I started it with a big ego. I really wanted to be the guy. I wanted to be a guy that people talked about. I wanted to see people watching me. I wanted to see, and in all honesty, when this started, I think, in my mind, I was looking at that as the success factor. I was bringing the charity with me, but I was evaluating the success on how popular and how much attention and how much engagement I was getting. And that's full transparency. Ego is a very, very bad thing. And I had a big ego, a damaging ego. There's good ego, there's bad ego. My ego was very bad. And what I've had to learn, and I think and I pray that this is what's happening, because this is where I'm really going to become a better human being and probably someone that can help people, is when I can get to the finish line and abandon the whole concept of how many people care about what I did versus how many people did I help. There's a big difference. You could be a very popular individual and do nothing good for a community. You can also be a very silent individual and do amazing things for a community. I lie in the middle right now. I've moved further towards that good side. I started way over here. I'm moving across it slowly, and I think when you get to that point where you're talking with no other agenda than to help people, to tell your story from an authentic perspective, and not care about how many likes and all that stuff. I still do. I still do. I would be a liar to you if I didn't post something and hope for a lot of engagement and a lot of attention. So let's say I get 100 likes, but I get no donations that day. Let's say I got 0 likes, but I got $1,000 in donations that day. That's where I want to go. And right now, and this is the other thing. I think for men especially, I hope I represent someone who's honest about ego, about insecurities, about aging and what it does, and the importance that you feel you're losing as you get older. I hope I can become a voice for men and women, I guess, but more so for men because I can relate to that, to say it's okay. You're not the 25-year-old bodybuilder on Instagram. You're not going to get 1,000 followers overnight. That's just the way it is. But you can still do amazing things, and you can still help a lot of people. And I think if I can get to that point, then I can become a very effective person after this ride and do so much more than what I've done in my past life. And I'll say this last thing around this. The measures of success that we have in today's society can absolutely brutalize people. And that's why we have to flip that around. That's why I think followers and likes and attention and engagement, it's a shame that there's meaningful content out there, that there's really great people doing great things. But if you slip on a banana, you're a popular guy on YouTube. You're a popular guy on Instagram. And honestly, I was after that. I was after that kind of persona. I wanted to do endurance things and be known as this really strong guy that, is rocking it even though I'm older. I don't feel that way anymore. I think that I'm starting to move towards the acceptance phase that it's okay not to be that person. I got a long way to go. So I hope that in this next month, I really go through that growth phase, because then I become a very, very effective tool for other people.
We've talked a lot about how you were hoping to, at this point now, by the time the ride is over, figure out what the next thing is. Do you think that you've put some undue pressure on yourself, and maybe it's okay that you don't know what the next thing is, and maybe you need a break and a debrief after this for a week, a month, before you actually know what that next thing is?
It's a really good question. The advice that I was just given by a couple of people I respect, was that you don't need it in detail, but you have to have the compass, the directional compass. Don't get to the finish line unprepared. At least have a compass giving you the right directions to that desired end state. And maybe that desired end state will change. The thing about it is that I may not know it in detail, but maybe the better question is, will you be prepared to accept what it is? Because it's not going to be what you thought it would be. And I think that's the tricky part. I think I have to be okay with the version of Matt that will end up at the finish line and what that version of Matt can do versus who I thought I was and who I thought I was going to become. And I think I'm doing that. That's all I can say. So you're absolutely right. I don't need it in detail, but I think at least I have to have that directional compass with the high level, the 100,000-foot view of who that person needs to become. I think when we talked early on, I said I have a lot of flaws. I've given you some more of those flaws. More importantly, when I get to the finish line, I hope I can at least have a path forward and a fix for some of those things. Like I said, the egos, the insecurities and stuff like that. That's a tough order though, man. It's hard.
Yeah. Well, what's the next big milestone for you?
So I think Whitehorse is the next big milestone. So that's really going to be a big chunk of the potential threat around forest fires. And it's also going to be kind of the most unknown because we're going to go up there. Once we get there into Yellowknife, we'll at least know because we come back for a big chunk of it on the same way, and then we're on known territory again. So I think this Whitehorse run for the next 12 days is going to be quite scary. Forest fires, of course, will be in play. But once we get to Whitehorse, it's going to be kind of like, wow, now we have done something. There's going to be a couple of folks up there filming some stuff for us. We're going to have Lyle Best, our sponsor, up there. It's going to be, if I'm not mistaken, I should be over 10,000 kilometers maybe by then. I'd have to talk to the map maker over here to tell me how many kilometers are in each stop. But I think I'll be close to 10,000, if not over.
Wow.
That's big.
Yeah, that's a lot of traveling on a bicycle.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if I told you this story. We're talking, I met a little person. This was a while ago. I think it was like the first half of the ride. And the mother of the child said, do you know how far Matt has cycled? And I think, like I said, it was 5,000 kilometers or something like that. And he said no. And I told him, and he had no clue. So I said, where's the furthest place you've been? And he said, Mexico. So I quickly Googled it, and I think it was like there and back was the distance that I'd already cycled. So I said, I've cycled from here to Mexico and back. And that was in the first kind of quarter of the ride. So I've come a lot. I've been back and forth to Mexico a whole bunch of times now. So yeah, it's been a long one.
That's impressive. And I also know you guys had a bit of an incident yesterday around your hotel or the motel that you were trying to stay at.
Well, yeah, we always, to be fair to Nicole, she booked every hotel in advance, 100 nights, give or take. A couple we still don't have, but she's done a really good job. And to be fair to her, every day ends, I'm not in the best spirits. I'm tired, I'm frustrated, I'm angry, flat tire, hot, smoke, whatever it could be. And all I want is a good hotel. And it's like that end of day, it's like a surprise bag. You get handed the bag and you rip it open, and sometimes it's a great bag and it's got candies and toys, and other times it's got pennies and rubber bands, and it just and she has to put up with me. And sometimes she'll just say, "Can it? We're staying here because we're trying to save money for the charity." Well, yesterday was one of those days where I wasn't in a good mood. We pulled in, and there were people mulling about the parking lot that were not tourists. They were there for the wrong reasons. And sitting in the parking lot was a cop car. And I walked in, and at first I actually said, okay, the room doesn't seem so bad. But I always worry about the expensive equipment in the van. And she said, do you want me to go ask the police officer? And I said, yeah. She came back and she's like, we're going. Let's go. What happened? She goes, I think someone was murdered down the stairs. And as we drove by, there was police tape and a rose in front of the door. And today we went back. Well, we didn't go back. We drove by it. And they're still there, like a forensics unit. So there was either a very violent crime or a murder.
Man. And so, I don't want to make light of whatever happened because that's terrible, but it's just difficult having to adjust to something, and good job on looking out for yourself.
That was I think now the second or the third time we've had to pick up and relocate to a different hotel. Other than that, we've stayed at every one we've booked, and we've accepted some bad things, but overall, I'll give Canada a pretty good break. There's a lot of really great hotels that are, smaller, lesser known names.
Yeah, well, you make sure, I told Nicole to tell you this last time I talked to her, you make sure to tell her thank you, because that woman, I'm blown away that, how do you logistically plan something like this? And she has beyond crushed it from what I've seen.
Yeah, for two people who've never done anything like this before, a lot of the logistics she's taken care of. The cycling stuff, I've never cycled further than 160 kilometers. We somehow brought this thing together, and it's like I said to you earlier, I think even if I veered off the road right now and couldn't go another foot, we've succeeded in doing something pretty amazing. We've got a lot of people talking about the charity. We've raised some money. There's going to be a surprise coming soon. A big donation is going to be coming in. I'll go out and say this. Any charity would be lucky to have this duo working for them. I think we've done an amazing job. And I say that with a little bit of brag, but why not? We've done something here that, here we are, day 50 or 40. I can't remember what day it is. We've done pretty good.
Yeah, I think you're over somewhere around day 50.
Yeah, Nicole, I think, whispers day 60,
okay.
That's mind-boggling to me. I can't even believe that. We haven't even seen we saw a sign coming into Prince George. This is really funny. And it said, go this way to Prince George, or go this way to a national park called Jasper, and then I think it said / Edmonton, our home. And I said, Nicole, can you believe this? If we took a right, we'd be home by maybe tomorrow or the day after. Like, we've come all that way, and through the back door, we can see our home province just around the bend. Now, unfortunately, we have to go up north for 1,000+ kilometers, but it just goes to show you, we've covered a long way.
Yeah, well, I am so proud of what you guys have done. You're doing an amazing job. Please keep up what you're doing. For everyone that's listening, watching, you can follow along. You can donate at rideforchange.ca. I'll put the link down below in the description. But also go follow Matt on Instagram, Divine Transformation, at Divine Transformation. And then like, share, and donate. We want to help spread the word. That's why we keep doing these interviews. Not only because Matt's a great friend, but I also we really want to help share what it is he's going through, the transformation and the journey of what he's done to really help raise awareness for this great charity.
Hey, I want to say one thing to you. I spoke to somebody else today who's another, I would consider a talented podcaster. And I actually brought you up. I said, yeah, I've done 2 or 3 of these. primarily you've been the person I've talked to the most. You're very talented at what you do, and I hope, no matter what, after this is done, the ecosystem that I create will include your participation, because I think there's a lot of neat people I want you to meet. There's a lot of stories I want to tell, and there's a lot of resources I want to bring together and distribute amongst, good people that do good things. So I really think you're a talented guy at this, so I'm super glad we met, and I want to keep working with you during this event and hopefully afterwards as well. So it's been this has been one of the best parts of the ride, Chris, is hooking up with you and telling the story. And today I'm smiling. You've seen all versions of Matt, so thank you for putting up with me.
Yeah, well, thank you. I'm honored, and I'm honored that you chose me to help share the story, and I would love to help spread the word of anything you do in the future. So yes, I'd be a part of that. So
Awesome. Hey, if you can, the invite's there, August 27th. Love to see you at the finish line. I know that's a tall ask, but if you were, there'd be a place for you to stay, and we'd love to meet you face to face. But if you can't, you'll be there virtually.
Exactly. Well, thank you for the invite, and we'll see what we can figure out.
All right, brother. We'll talk soon.
All right, thanks, man. Have a good one.
You bet.
And be safe in that smoke.
Thank you, man.